Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into a topic that's been debated, dissected, and misunderstood for years. And at the center of it is one of the world's most well-known investors, Ray Dalio. You probably know Ray Dalio as the founder of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, a brilliant macro thinker, a man with unmatched influence in global financial circles. But in recent years, Dalio has become one of the most vocal and passionate defenders of China's long-term potential. He has written articles, given interviews, and even published books suggesting that China is rising while the West is declining, that the Chinese system is efficient, meritocratic, and future-ready, that the West, particularly the US, should learn from China and not the other way around. But is that perception actually true? In this video, we're going to break down exactly what Ray Dalio got wrong about China. We're going to look at what he has said over the years and why the assumptions behind his views are simply not true, the reality on the ground, and what it all means for investors, policymakers, and global citizens trying to understand China today. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dig into what Ray Dalio got wrong and why it matters more than ever. Let's begin by understanding Ray Dalio's core argument about China. It goes something like this. China is experiencing a long-term rise. Much like the previous global powers, such as the British Empire and the United States during their ascendancy. The US, or more broadly the West, is entering a period of decline marked by political dysfunction, debt, and social division. Dalio believes that China's rise is inevitable due to its strong and wise leadership, efficient bureaucracy, its focus on education and infrastructure, strategic long-term planning, and a Confucian culture that promotes discipline, order, and meritocracy. He often praises the Chinese Communist Party for being pragmatic, results-oriented, and capable of adapting quickly to new challenges. He has compared Xi Jinping's government to a group of capable CEOs running the world's most complex enterprise. He argues that Western democracies, by contrast, are chaotic, short-sighted, and constrained by messy political systems. Dalio also points to China's economic record over the past 40 years, lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty, building world-class infrastructure, and in the process becoming a tech powerhouse, as evidence that the system works and will continue to work. Sounds compelling, right? But here's the problem. Much of this argument is based on surface-level observations, selective data, and a deep misunderstanding of China's internal contradictions. Let's unpack them one by one. One of Dalio's biggest mistakes is equating authoritarian control with competence. Yes, the Chinese Communist Party can mobilize resources quickly. Yes, it can impose policies from the top down without going through elections or messy debates. But control does not mean wise decision. Take COVID-0 for example. Dalio praised China's response in 2020 as efficient and decisive. But what happened in the long run? The government locked down entire cities for months, banned travel, and forced millions into quarantine camps. It refused to import Western vaccines for nationalist reasons. And when the policy inevitably collapsed, it was abandoned overnight with no plan, no preparation, and no transparency. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and the real death toll to this day was likely in the millions, far higher than the government admitted. That's not competence, that's rigidity, followed by chaos. Dalio ignored the cost of control, focusing only on the temporary appearance of order and efficiency. The same goes for other areas, from tech crackdowns to property market interventions. The Chinese government often looks decisive from the outside, but the costs of these decisions, including stifled innovation, capital flight, and collapsing confidence, are rarely accounted for in Dalio's analysis. Dalio also repeatedly downplays political risk in China, especially under Xi Jinping. He claims that the leadership is rational, wise, and focused on outcomes. But this ignores one of the most important shifts in modern Chinese history: the centralization of power around a single man. Under Xi, China has become far more autocratic, opaque, and ideological. The days of collective leadership are over. Today, decisions are made in secret by a small circle of Xi Jinping's royalists. Consider these examples: the sudden disappearance of Jack Ma, the overnight destruction of the after-school tutoring sector, the forced detention of top executives, the suppression of all dissenting voices within the party and the media. These are not signs of a healthy, rational system. They are signs of deep insecurity and overreach. Dalio has repeatedly said that we should not criticize the Chinese government because we don't understand how it works, right? They're just some strict parents. But this is not intellectual humility. It's wishful blindness. Understanding political risk is essential for investors and policymakers. And under Xi, the risks are rising, not falling. Dalio often praises China for allowing capitalism with Chinese characteristics. He sees the country as a place where entrepreneurship can flourish within limits under the wise guidance of the state. But here's the truth. The private sector in China is under unprecedented pressure. Look at all the capital flight. Over the past few years, we have seen tech giants like Alibaba, Tencent, and Didi targeted by regulatory crackdowns. Entire industries like online education and fintech destroyed overnight. Foreign investors pulling out due to a lack of transparency and arbitrary rules. Why? Because the party has decided that ideological control matters more than economic dynamism in today's China. Xi Jinping has made it clear: the private sector exists to serve the party's goals, not the other way around. Chinese entrepreneurs must toe the party line. Innovation must align with state priorities, and foreign investors must accept that the rules in China can change anytime without prior notice and without legal recourse. Dalio's failure to account for this has led him to overestimate China's long-term potential and underestimate the risks to innovation, capital formation, and sustained growth. One of the other most glaring blind spots in Dalio's China analysis is demographics. China is facing the steepest population decline of any major economy in history. The birth rate has collapsed to record lows. The population is aging rapidly. The working age population is shrinking. Women are opting out of marriage and childbirth in massive numbers. The 2023 census showed China's population shrinking for the first time in decades, and this decline is only accelerating. It has enormous implications. A smaller labor force means slower growth. An older population means higher social spending and less productivity. Urbanization has peaked, and the property market is in long-term decline. Dalio barely acknowledges these issues, and when he does, he assumes that the wise leadership in China will figure it out. But the truth is, they still haven't. Government efforts to boost fertility, from propaganda to subsidies to moral pressure, have all failed. Cultural shifts are hard to reverse, and in China's case, the trauma of the one-child policy combined with a toxic work culture, a lack of support, and workplace discrimination against women has made child rearing deeply unattractive. And this is no temporary dip. This is a structural, long-term crisis. Also, Dalio often cites Chinese statistics, the growth numbers, investment figures, productivity gains, as evidence of China's economic success. But there's a problem. The data cannot be trusted. China has a long history of cooking the book, fabricating or suppressing economic data to meet the political goals. Local officials are incentivized to inflate GDP numbers. The central government routinely changes how unemployment or productivity is measured. Independent researchers are banned from conducting sensitive surveys. Entire sectors, from real estate to banking, operate in a fog of misinformation. And when reality becomes too uncomfortable, you know what they do? The government simply stops publishing data altogether. For example, youth unemployment data was abruptly discontinued in 2023 after it reached record highs. Dalio's reliance on Chinese government data shows a naive trust in a system that punishes truth-telling. So if you can't trust the data, you can't trust the narrative. Now, onto the myth of the Chinese civilizational competence. One of Dalio's deeper assumptions is that China's long history as a great civilization somehow gives it unique resilience and wisdom. He often says that China has gone through cycles of rise and fall, and that we should view its current rise as part of a 500-year trend. But this view really romanticizes Chinese history, while ignoring the brutal present. Modern China is not a Confucian meritocracy. It's a Leninist, Marxist bureaucracy that has fused economic nationalism with digital surveillance. The party's legitimacy no longer comes from ideology or elections. It comes from economic performance and increasingly from coercion. Yes, China has accomplished remarkable things, but it has also interned over 1 million Uyghurs in camps, crushed civil society in Hong Kong, tightened censorship to North Korean levels, banned foreign books, NGOs, and independent media. This is not civilizational wisdom. This is state paranoia, and it is leading to stagnation, not renewal. Dalio frames the 21st century as a competition between an inevitably rising China and an inevitably declining US. He sees the US as politically broken, economically indebted, and socially divided. And he is not wrong on many of these points. But his comparison overlooks the deep advantages that the US still holds. Innovation fueled by freedom of thought and academic excellence. Demographics powered by immigration. Rule of law flawed but resilient. A culture of reinvention, criticism, and pluralism. The US is messy, but it's also adaptive. China, by contrast, is rigid. It cannot self-correct. It cannot tolerate dissent. And that makes it far more vulnerable in the long term. Dalio's narrative of American decline versus Chinese rise may be emotionally appealing, but it is analytically shallow. We also have to ask, why does Ray Dalio keep defending China? The answer may lie in his access bias. Dalio has spent decades cultivating ties with Chinese elites. He's been granted access to top officials, given honorary titles, and allowed to operate in a system that tightly controls foreign access. To maintain that access, he has to play by their rules. And the first rule is, don't criticize the party. Dalio's soft language, calling China a civilization state, or praising its wise governance, is not just diplomacy. It's also a form of self-censorship. The access actually becomes a trap. You think you're inside the system, understanding it, but in reality, you're just a pawn being used to project their legitimacy abroad. This doesn't mean Dalio is dishonest, but it does mean his views are shaped by incentives that deserve scrutiny. So, what can we learn from Ray Dalio's China mistake? Here's the takeaway. Admiring China's achievements is not wrong. Engaging with China is essential. But blind faith in China's system, especially under Xi Jinping, is dangerous and misguided. We must separate surface-level efficiency from deep structural weakness. We must see through the narratives spun by both the party and its foreign boosters. And most importantly, we must build a more resilient, balanced, and critical understanding of China's strengths and its limitations. Because China's future is far from guaranteed, and betting blindly on its rise, as Dalio has, may turn out to be one of the great miscalculations of our time. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful and insightful, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Do you agree with Ray Dalio's views on China, or do you think his views are overly simplistic? Do you think he has gotten it completely wrong because of his personal incentives, or is he being objective? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you want more deep dives on China, global economics, or investing with geopolitical awareness, make sure to turn on some notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay informed. Bye.